Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We have the pleasure in bringing this very important broadcast to you from Dr. Arikana Chihombori Quao. She's going to answer some questions from Arise News, covered by Arise News, and it's felt on the issue of Africa being colonized and oppressed and everything else. There are some really tough questions of her, and she's going to answer it. Let's go straight into it. You're watching Season Wide, the platform where we speak to power. Please don't forget, help us grow this platform. Really important. Thank you.
Her Excellency, Dr. Arikana, thank you so much for all you do for Africa. You've been a beacon of hope and inspiration, and thanks for standing tall for Africa. I just needed to say this to you. But I'd like to ask you this. Has the revolution truly begun? Is Africa really free? Because what we call revolution, to me, just looks like a cataclysmic action that is not directed towards anything. What we call revolution that made Central African Republic, for instance, break away from the hitherto colonial past is because of the tribal conflicts and the fight for governance going on there between the likes of Anti-Seleka, Anti-Balaka, Tudera, and some other actors. What is going on in Mali is because a leader wanted to sit tight in power and the military took over. What is going on in Guinea is the same thing. It's the same cycle of dance we've always had that made Africa, since we got independent, since most nations got independent in the 1960s, to 1990 have over 110 coups. Is that not the same movement without action or movement without purpose that we are going through, that we are mistaking for a revolution? That's one to you, man. And for Dr. Okai, are we truly there? Just to ask you that, after you, ma.
I see what's happening in Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Guinea very differently. If you look at the previous coups, those were orchestrated by Western powers, majority, of course, orchestrated by France. They had their own intentions, in a few quite documented very well. The leaders were trying to do what was ultimately best for their people, and those leaders were assassinated. The difference between these coups are coups being led by our people. The people have spoken. The people now truly understand the issues. The people are standing up to say what has been going on is unfair, is unacceptable. It really just simply makes sense that something has got to give. There's a difference between the previous coups and these last 4 coups, especially the one in Niger. I actually, on a personal level, I feel uncomfortable even calling them coups. This is, you look at a situation where people are basically desperate, where they know they're rich in natural resources, and yet the majority of the people are extremely poor. How long can that situation be sustained before the people finally wake up and rise up? That is what's happening. And I would like to call what's happening in these 4 countries as an ideological realignment of their economic, of their political, of their social values. At some point, if you look at the situation with the former French colonies, before even a president comes to power, there are certain no-go areas that the president must not touch, because if you do, you may not live to see the end of the day. Areas like the military, areas like, of course, the finances and the reserves that must be deposited with the French treasury, areas of the natural resources. So if you are a president, an African president, who is coming to power, and you are told, as long as you stay away from discussions pertaining to their presence, military presence in the country, training of your military by France, equipping of your military by France, don't talk about the natural resources, whose the French companies have the first right of approval. Do not talk, and make sure you continue to deposit your bank reserves with the French Central Bank. If you avoid those areas, then you're free to run your country any which way you want.
Exactly.
Now, what kind of a leader is that? What environment are you going to be occupying and managing and running your country with all those major areas of economic development no longer accessible to you. And the whole thing is so mind-boggling that we have gone to, over so many years, this is 2023, that the leaders in Africa have been unable to undo the agreements that were put in place when the African countries were given their independence. It is unbelievable that to this day, you can have a country like Niger to be the second poorest country in the world, and yet all their resources are going to France. Most of Niger is not electrified, while their uranium is electrifying France and Europe.
Exactly.
You can take one after the other the other.
Exactly.
At every level, it's unfair, it's unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
And I don't even know how the Western powers could really go to sleep every day knowing of the carnage that the havoc they're creating in Africa, and hope that this would go on forever. The time has come. The children of Africa are now awoken. They can see clearly now, and they're simply standing up and saying, enough is enough. So yes, we don't like coups, but the last 4 coups are very different in the sense that the children of Africa are very clear, because they are the ones standing up and saying, we got to take back our country. We need to defend our turf. What's right is right. What is wrong is wrong. We can no longer continue to be exploited. That's what makes this different. It's not influenced by France. The coups are not influenced by any nation. It's simply people standing back and saying, we're taking back what belongs to us. And that's what makes these coups different. And I'm uncomfortable calling them coups. I'm calling them instead ideological realignment of our economic, political, and social values.
I like that word, ideological realignment. It is very, very powerful. Well said by Dr. Arikana Chihombori Quao. Well said, ma'am.
The children have risen, and the children are speaking, and the citizens themselves are backing those who have led the uprising. And it is a warning to the Western powers that the African revolution has begun, and those who are going to align themselves with the people are those who are going to survive the revolution that's taking place in Africa. The same is true with the African leaders as well. Those who will align themselves with the wishes of the people are the ones who are going to survive this revolution as well. I do believe the African revolution has begun, and those who cannot see the writing on the wall, they will not survive this revolution. There is no turning back. The children of Africa are rising. The children of Africa understand the issues, and this time they're going to the streets, not along party lines. They're going to the streets united as citizens of Niger, as citizens of Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, because they understand that this particular fight has got to be dealt with from a national level, and I hope with time it'll be dealt with from a continental level, because the exploitation of the continent has got to stop.
It has to stop.
And this time, it is the children of Africa who are speaking,
yes,
and the world better listen up.
Listen, yes.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Doctor?
So I agree completely with Her Excellency, and I would like to say something, though, that, you know, it is said that this proverb, I don't know if you're familiar with it, that you can eat yam because of oil or eat oil because of yam. The important thing is you have eaten yam and oil. And what am I saying here? Whether you call it, to use a language now, a revolution or a realignment or a coup or by whatever name it is clear that whoever rules, whoever endures in many of these countries are those who best serve the interests of Western powers, not necessarily the interests of the people. And so, you know, historically from the Southwest here, you know that when you have an Oba, and please correct me if I'm wrong, about what I'm about to say now, who goes against the wishes of the people, he served traditionally the eggs of a parrot. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Or what that simply means is the minute you are served with that, just go commit suicide. It means the people no longer want you. So whereas, yes, traditionally you may have ascended the stool traditionally, you know, the right way, you are the king, but the minute you go against the people, you're served the parrot's egg. I see this as being served the parrot's egg. It is time, the people have said, and it is time for the people to take over the power, because truly, power belongs to the people. That's where it resides, and it is the people that give power to.
Please, I want to interject here. This is very important. Let me interject here. I couldn't miss this opportunity to really. Now, here we go. So, what is said there, particularly for Yoruba people and for Nigerians, not Nigerians. Nigerians, you need to. Power belongs to you. Sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom the government, through this constitution, derived all its powers and authority. You need to exercise those powers. We need to begin to take action, actively monitoring and taking part in our governance on a daily basis, holding them to account. Section 42C tells you how you can do it. The participation by the people in the government shall be ensured in accordance with the provisions of this constitution. Again, we need to use those powers. I wanted to bring that in because it was something that he mentioned there, talking about power belongs to the people, and you can see that the power being demonstrated by way of our sovereignty, and we need to use those powers consistently, collectively. Just wanted to interject there. Let's carry on.
Whoever it is that rules over them.
Okay, Dr. Quao, let me come back to you. I like the point you made about ideological realignment in Niger. Well, ECOWAS doesn't seem to think so. So ECOWAS defense chiefs are meeting today and tomorrow in Accra, Ghana, to decide on the mode of military intervention in Niger, which is one of the options that the ECOWAS heads of state and governments had put on the table. On Monday, however, the African Union Peace and Security Committee met, and that body, was divided about military intervention in Niger. They couldn't form a consensus on that issue. So you have two different positions. AU not deciding on military intervention. ECOWAS defense chiefs meeting today, tomorrow in Accra, Ghana. Do you think that ECOWAS putting military intervention on the table, announcing a standby force, has put a good option on the table?
I don't think it's a good option. And I would want to ask the same people who are sitting at the table having those discussions about having military intervention in Niger. Let me remind you that there are other coups that we are not talking about, that we should be talking about. By France forcing Niger to send all its natural resources to France, that's a coup. By France having its own military in Niger and forcing Nigerians that you can only be trained by France, that is a coup. By forcing Niger to deposit 50% of its reserves with France, that is a coup. The question I have for those who are sitting on the table, during those ECOWAS meetings, during those AU peace and security meetings, what have you done about those coups? Take those 3 coups, multiply by 14, because that's what's happening in the 14 former French colonies. Those are deadly coups that have been taking place for decades. And you, ECOWAS, have done nothing about those coups. I need them to also answer and give us remedy as to how they are going to handle those coups. Indeed. Make no mistake about it. Indeed. Those are coups against the African citizens in those countries.
Exactly.
And while they discuss what they would like to do with Niger.
The coups are coups against the African citizens. The coups are coups against the African citizens. Very, very important point you made there.
I would also want them to table those coups and come up with a solution as to what needs to be done, because behind those coups that I just described from France, there are millions of children who are dying from starvation. There are millions of children who are going to bed with an empty stomach. There are millions of African youth who are unemployed. There are millions of women who are dying while giving birth to another life. I need them to put that on the table as well. If their interests are truly about the Africans, let's look at the global view of the issue. Let's have a bird's eye view of the issue and have a frank and fair and honest discussion about what is really going on in Africa. I do know that I don't think the carnage that's going on in Africa is what ECOWAS is all about. Leadership is about the people. It's about creating a better life for the people. But if you're going to allow one who has committed egregious crimes in Africa continues to have coups, those are coups. Let's call a spade a spade. You can't give France a pass. So also let us know what you intend to do about those ongoing economic and political coups that are being imposed on those 14 French countries, former French colonies by France. So to just talk about what's happening in Niger alone, in isolation, and not go to the root causes of the genesis of why what's happening is happening, simply does not make any sense. And I would hope military intervention in Niger is not an option. That simply is not something we should do as Africans. There are better ways of dealing with our issues. Our elders must come together. Our elders must have a frank conversation, and let's look at what is ultimately best for the people, not only the people in Niger, but in all former French colonies and ultimately in all African countries, because this moment is calling for unity, meaningful unity of purpose among the African leaders to simply say, guys, this can no longer continue. It simply cannot continue. The people have spoken, and I hope our leadership would listen.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Quao, for joining us, and thank you also.
So, what she said there is, honestly, this lady is just, I could listen to her all day. I literally could. She's a great visionary. She speaks for every African, and I do mean every African, young and old, man and woman, and everything in between, all of us. And at this time, I mean, the point she makes about what are ECOWAS doing about those coups, and knowing those coups have actually denied people the right access to the resources in our own land. This is right across the whole of Africa. Very, very important point she made here. So intellectual realignment, I think it's something like the words to use, and I really agree with her, because the coup now, this one's a bloodless coup, what you're hearing, and what they're doing is trying to speak up for us as Africans. Our voices have not been heard in our own land. The colonials have held on to power by force, and it is time now that Africa is rising. We must wake up collectively, speak together, hold those who we elect to office, to governance, to account, using our sovereign powers, such as we have in Nigeria, and begin to address the injustice. We cannot continue to allow our resources to be stripped away from us, left, right, and center by colonials, whilst we, those to whom those resources belong, don't benefit from those resources. That is injustice. It is immoral. It is corrupt. It is. I run out of words to explain how unjust that is. So we support Dr. Arikana Chihombori Quao in her efforts in raising the awareness, and it's through majorly the work that she's been doing to raise awareness that many of us, including myself, have woken up, have been present and conscious to know that Africa must do something about this injustice collectively, and we need a collective effort in freeing Africa from the claws of oppression and colonization, and we must continue to do that work. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching This Is Network, the platform where we speak to power. It's for me, just even covering this alone within an hour or so of her speaking, I'm really, I'm excited about this, and I'm looking forward to the point where I will be able to speak to her directly myself, and maybe even bring her onto the show on Citizen AY, the platform where we speak to power, because she will have quite a lot of things to say to us in ways that are very, very clear and concise, and really giving us direction as to how we can achieve a truly independent Africa. I firmly believe that. But for now, it's just been, I'm just enthused, and I'm optimistic now just hearing her, and I want us all to pick on take on the words that she spoke, and how she's challenging us now to begin to go forward as Africans and redefine who we are and take control of our own continent away from the hands of the colonials. That is a must. It's not even a debate. It is a must. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching Citizen AY, the platform where we speak to power. Thank you for watching. Please, as ever, don't forget to subscribe to Citizen AY, hit the notification button, and of course, give us a thumbs up. So, what you need to do? Subscribe to Citizen AY, hit the notification button, give us a thumbs up. So, one more time, subscribe, hit the notification button, and of course, give us a thumbs up. Help us reach more people. We are grateful for your support, and of course, we're grateful for the opportunity of listening to and hearing the great visionary Dr. Arikana Chihombori Quao via Arise News, and we were able to dissect some of what she said. And I'm hoping that we can take that on personally and use that as every African now. We need to walk towards freeing Africa from the bondage of slavery and colonization that we are still in, even as we speak. It's time to wake up. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching Citizen AY, the platform where we speak to the power, and keep it locked on. Citizen AY. Thank you, and bye.